Welcome back to the Our View podcast. This episode is part of our Super Sports Saturdays, a series of episodes that will highlight adaptive sports programs, their athletes, and those who organize these programs. My intention in creating this series of episodes is to bring awareness to the importance of inclusive and adaptive sports and play, to show how sports and play are beneficial to all. I hope you enjoy this episode. Welcome back to the Our View podcast. This episode is part of our Super Sports Saturday, a series of episodes that will highlight adaptive sports programs, their athletes, and those who organize these programs. My intention in creating this series of episodes is to bring awareness to the importance of inclusive play and adaptive sports, to show how sports and play are beneficial to all. I hope you enjoy this episode. On today's episode, I welcome my guest, my friend, Paralympic gold medalist April Holmes. Join our conversation as we discuss the train accident that led to her being an amputee, her road to the Paralympic Games, the work she is doing with the April Holmes Foundation, and the importance of representation. Welcome to the Our View podcast, which is my podcast that raises awareness about disabilities with the focus of changing the tone of conversation about disabilities. So I created the podcast to let people know that there are those who live with disabilities who are out here doing great things, amazing things, and fun things. And just to help the world at large understand that people with disabilities are not just sitting around. You know, we're active people and we do things. So I want to help people see the lives that those who have disabilities help them see the lives that we live are pretty interesting, and and tell our stories, and specifically tell the stories of people of color who have disabilities, because I feel that we are not represented very often in a lot of stories that are being told. You hardly, it's rare to see people of color who have disabilities on TV and in the news. And so I want to use, this platform to highlight those stories as well. So I would like to officially welcome April Holmes to the Our View podcast, and thank you for joining me today. And I'd like to start off all of my episodes by asking my guests to introduce themselves, because you and I have known each other for a few years now, and you've been to a few of Jake's Place events, and I've been to a few of your April Holmes Foundation events, which are the most fun events ever. And I have the most fun at your events. But what I know about you might be different than what you would want to share with people, and you might want to add some things or things that I don't know about you. So can you just give a brief introduction as to who you are? Who is April Holmes?
Wow. I introduce myself. This is interesting. So I am a product of born and raised in the South Jersey area. Spent my childhood in a town called Atco, but also spent a considerable amount of time in Camden, just because my family lived in Camden, but I lived in Atco. So I like to tell people all the time I had some trees I had some neighbors that were like evergreen and pine and things like that. Because they're not, years ago when I was growing up, there were not very many things in Atco, New Jersey. So people seem to know it by the racetrack, but nevertheless, that's where I grew up at. Spent so much of my time as a kid involved in athletics. My mom believed that keep kids busy, they'll stay out of trouble. So I was everything from track and field, which I fell upon and loved basketball. But she had me in everything from like ballet and tap dancing and a baton, like things, piano. Let me not leave out the piano lessons that I absolutely despised. But nevertheless, while my mother did not have the funds for me to go to college, she always pressed upon me every single day to work on my education, just as hard as I was working on my athletics. so that I could get a scholarship so that I could go to college, because it was expected that I went to college. Like there was no, well, if you go to college, it was when you go to college kind of conversation in my house. From 5 years old, excuse me, from 5 years old all the way through high school in track and field, I ended up getting a college scholarship to go to run track at Norfolk State. I ran track for 4 years at Norfolk State, and I absolutely loved it. I was also very fortunate that my track coach was at just like my mom. So my mom, in fact, gave her permission that if I got out of line or if I did anything that was bad, to just beat me or hit me upside my head or whatever. She had permission to be my mom while I was away from my mom. So I'm not really sure why my mom gave her those type of permissions, but nevertheless, she was a godsend and still is a godsend to me. So about I guess about how many years? Maybe about 5 years or so after I got out of college, I got into a train accident and I ended up losing my left leg below my knee as a result of the train accident. My boyfriend and I were in Philadelphia, and we were getting ready to go to New York, and we were actually at the train station in Philadelphia at 30th Street Station. And I end up getting ready to get on a train. The driver decided he was ready to go before I got on. I ended up slipping and falling and literally fell and landed underneath the platform of the train, and with the train resting on my leg. I laid there for 17 minutes while they tried to free me from the train, only to wake up several hours later in the emergency room and find out that my left leg had been amputated. And very much to your point, Arthur, that there are not very Black people with disabilities are not very well represented in the world. And not just in media, they're just not very represented in the world. Because I think back to my childhood, or prior to my accident, shall I say, I had never experienced people with disabilities unless I had gone to church. I had gone to the mall. The mall and church is really the only place I had ever seen anyone with a disability. And they were not always Black people. They were not. It was like, okay, I really thought when I got into my accident, I felt alone. I felt like I was the only person that I knew that had a disability per se. So that was a very, very lonely time, because it's, you don't know like anyone that's kind of traveling down that same pathway and road as you do. And so you think, okay, I'm the only one this is happening to, and why is it happening to me, kind of thing. But the second that, you come across and meet people such as yourself, you meet other people, then it's like, wait, I'm not in a world by myself. Like
You're
it's
right.
plenty of other people around, so, just like me. So meeting those people and being introduced to those people, I had a doctor. He actually just recently passed away, but my emergency surgeon, he came in my room one day at the hospital, at the University of Pennsylvania Hospital, and he gave me some magazines about the Paralympics. And prior to then, I didn't know anyone that had a disability, let alone any athletic people. Like that was even,
Right.
even further from reality. But once I saw the magazines, and once I kind of got introduced to that lifestyle, I'm like, okay, I got it. I came up with 3 dreams. I'm all about like, okay, what is your dream, and work on it? Like, what is your dream, and work on it? What is your dream, and work on it? So I came up with these 3 dreams that I wanted to represent the United States at the next Paralympic Games. I wanted to win gold medals, and I wanted to be the fastest amputee in the world. And so I had a very amazing athletic career. It was showered with plenty of world records and plenty of gold medals and titles along the way, world championship titles and United States titles and things like that. But I mean, I've recently retired from athletics, but I mean, that was the thing that kind of has always kept me going all my life. Just knowing that I can be active despite my disability, knowing that I can, still be influential to other people despite my disability, and the fact that I can still, go and do all that I want to do and go everywhere that I want to go, despite my disability. So, I've not allowed that to stop me in terms of things I wanted to do in my life. And I think that's still a very important life lesson to me. It's like, don't allow your physical or your mental limitations to kind of, put a stronghold on your life. Instead, if you see it, if you want it, if you desire it, then go get it.
Absolutely. I think a few things you just talked about. You grew up in Atco. I grew up in Chislehurst, which
Mm-hmm.
is the next town
Yes. Yes.
over from Atco. So I understand about you, saying your neighbors were the
Chislehurst
trees,
is
and
even worse, I think.
It
I
it
think
is.
hers is even worse.
It's it's even smaller, and there's a lot more trees, and so I can definitely relate to like you said, your neighbors being the trees and pines and and the
Evergreen
animals
spruce.
and everything. Yeah. So that made me smile a lot thinking
Yes.
about that, and also what you just said too about, you know, your first time hearing about the Paralympics was when your doctor gave you the magazines. And that is so true. I brought it up a few years ago when the Olympics were on. They're on literally almost 24/7 on, you know, the major networks, you know, whatever, if it's NBC, they're on all the time. You know, you can
Mhm.
wake up at 1 or 2 in the morning and you see that they're on. The Paralympics get such little TV time. And if they do, it's like a 2 hour special that wraps up everything on like a Saturday afternoon, or it's on a channel that you have to search and see if you actually have that channel. So it's really difficult to you know, to see, like you said, you were an athlete, you know, all of your life and before your injury. And it's just, you know, to not know that something like this existed, like the Paralympics, you know, it's really, it's difficult to grow up as, you know, a child who has a disability like myself. I was born with my disability. So, and I also can relate to, you know, not seeing people who look like me, whether they were black or not. Like I just didn't see any other people that used crutches or had a wheelchair too often in my life growing up as a child.
Mhm.
So, you know, I was never, I, I don't know if maybe if I did know about the Paralympics, I would have become more interested in sports, but because I knew I couldn't play sports like my cousins, I couldn't play basketball like my cousins or football. Um, you know, I just lost interest in it, you know, growing up as a child. But as I got older, I saw there was wheelchair basketball, there's wheelchair rugby, and you know, all kinds of sports available to those who have disabilities. So it's really, really important that, you know, the word gets out there that there are activities and sports specifically for people who have disabilities. And that's the reason why I'm doing these sports Saturdays episodes, just to see the wide range of things that are available to people who have disabilities as far as in the sports world goes. Um, so then the next question, how soon after your accident were you, you know, thinking about, you know, really getting back into the running and athletics in general?
So when I first woke up from my in the hospital after surgery, when I first woke up, my very first questions to my cousin who and my mom, who were standing beside my bed, were, you know, what happened to my leg? Because I knew something happened to my leg because it was clearly trapped underneath a train. So I'm like, okay, were they able to, you know, what happened to it? Um, and so I remember them, you know, continuing to say to me that I would be okay. Like my cousin just kept saying, "Oh, you'll be okay. Oh, you'll be okay. Oh, you'll be okay." So I had a neck brace on at the time, so I couldn't really like look at it. But after she kept saying, "You'll be okay," I'm like, "Oh no, I need to lift up and kind of look at my leg."
Hmm.
And it was in looking at my leg at that moment, I turned back to her and I said to her, I said, "You mean it?" Now, when I lift up and look down, all I saw was a white cast. I didn't see anything else. Like there was no foot there. And so I turned back to her and I said, "You mean to tell me I'll never be able to run or play basketball again?" And she's like, "Oh no, you'll be okay." And so, I mean, so very first thought, once I learned that I was, you know, now an amputee, was I'd never be able to play again. But it probably took maybe I'll say a week or so, maybe a week, week and a half. And that's when Dr. DeLong kind of came in with these magazines about the Paralympics. And I'm like, wait a minute, you mean to tell me I can actually run and track or play basketball again? By then I was all about track. I didn't want to sit in a wheelchair and play basketball. To me,
Hmm.
if I can't jump and use my vertical, I don't want to play. um, so they didn't have any, the Paralympics does not, and still does not to this day, have a standing basketball team. They only have a wheelchair basketball team.
Right.
Um, which, I mean, listen, if you have played it, of course, probably because you're in a wheelchair, but like
Hmm.
to actually sit in a wheelchair, to try and roll, to try and throw a ball at a basket, and you're moving and the basket stands still, like that concept is so lost to me.
Yeah.
It's such a difficult thing to do, and I don't think people realize how difficult wheelchair basketball is. But nevertheless, I knew if I got a prosthetic leg, I knew I could run. So about a week and a half after my surgery, I mean, after my amputation is when I really like kind of dialed in with those 3 dreams for track and field. And I mean, from there it was I need a leg. I mean, I need to push hard through rehab. I need to learn how to walk, and even better, I need to learn how to run, like run all over again. So I need a leg. Hey, give me a leg. Just anybody, just give me a leg. Or like April, it doesn't work like that. You know, you have to let your skin heal. You just have to. There's some swellingness in your leg that needs to go down. You need to get fitted for a prosthetic device. You
Hmm.
need to learn how to walk first before you can even get a running leg. I'm like, this process sucks.
Right.
But nevertheless, I was so also very fortunate that I had a physical therapist. Her name's Andrea. And Andrea was, I mean, from the very first day she did an evaluation on me, like once I got my walking leg, I checked into a rehab hospital in order to learn how to walk, I'm sorry. So Andrea, the very first day I checked into the rehab place to learn how to walk, she kind of went through with me and asked me what is it that you want to do? Like, what are your goals? Which I thought was amazing. You know, for a therapist to ask you what your goals are, um, to me, that just takes them to a whole nother level. So when she
Right.
asked me, I said, I want to run. And she's like, oh, okay. Most people come in and talk about, I want to walk, but you want to run. I said, okay, if you want to dial it back to walking, I said, I want to be able to walk with my prosthetic device and if I have a pair of pants on, no one will be able to tell that I have a prosthetic device on. Like, I want to be able to walk that well, like walk like I walked before. I
Hmm.
was like, and then I also want to be able to run because I got these 3 dreams. I kept telling these people about my 3 dreams. I want to be the fastest in the world. I want to represent the United States, and I want to win gold medal. Plain and simple. And she looked at me and she said, "Okay, then we got some work to do." I said, "Well, let's do it." And the rest became history. But I mean, she pushed me, and I continued to push myself, as well as, like I said, continuing to share those 3 dreams with people. That was very important to me, because I knew if days I didn't want to go to therapy, days I didn't feel like it, days I just didn't have the motivation to do so, I knew that people around me would remind me of what I said I wanted to do. And that to me was even equally as important. You know, again, you wake up and you missing your leg, and then you're like, okay, wait, I have dreams. I still have dreams. I'm still valuable. You know,
Hmm.
I'm still able to do things. I think as we talk about, like, you know, people's mental capacity, it's like, am I still able? Am I still valuable? Can I still do things? I think that's so important for people with disabilities, is like, you know, constantly being reassured of those things, that you're still able, you still can do, and you're still capable of doing, you know, basically anything that you want to do. So, you know, keeping that in mind, athletics really helped me dial that in for me.
Yeah, and that's really I think that's really key because, as you know, as I mentioned, our stories are different in that I've had my disability all my life. You
Mhm.
were, you were an adult when you acquired your disability. So, it's different, and to experience that loss of, part of your leg, and, like you said, to figure out where you fit in, and, your life was really, really involved the athletics. And it was just like, okay, can I still do this? Can I still do that? And then to have the the therapist say that on the first, on the first day, like, what are your goals? Because often they have goals for you,
Mhm.
and they have to reach certain points of your therapy. But it's like, what do you want to do? And I'm sure you blew her away with with those responses. Like, hey,
Yeah,
all right, here's
especially because most of the people she would work with a lot of the times were elderly people. You know,
right.
not very often did she come across a young person. So I was just as much challenged as much as I was trying to challenge myself, as, you know, she was as much challenging me, because it's like, okay, wait a minute, this is going to be a challenge, because I'm not used to working with, you know, younger people who are, you know, very athletic and those kind of things. So, you know, every single day she was throwing all different types of things at me in order to be able to get me from where I was to where I wanted to be.
Right. Can you briefly just talk about what sports you competed in within the Paralympics, and what years you were competing there?
Yep. So I competed in from 2002, when I first lost my leg. So I lost my leg in 2001. So my very first competition was in 2002. So from 2002 through 2016, I competed in all track and field events. I never made a transition to wheelchair basketball, although I watched them from a distance and continued to cheer them on and things like that. My main thing was I'm a track and field athlete. So I did the, let's see, I did 100 meters, which I broke in the 100-meter world record a number of times. I did the 200 meters, same thing, broke the world record a number of times in the 200 meters. Did the 400. I think I only did that a handful of times, if that many, just long enough to break the world record. That's all I wanted to do. It's just to go out there and break the world record. And that's enough of that I did. 400 is very, very painful. And then I also long jumped. I didn't do that very often, but I actually ended up by a mistake, end up winning a bronze medal at the 2004 games in a long jump. But it was a very long but a very fun athletic career. Just traveling around so many different countries, meeting people with all different disabilities from all over the world, and seeing the impact that we can have on the world. You spoke about the Olympic Games being on 24/7 for 2 weeks, and the Paralympic Games being on for 2 hours over on a Saturday and on a Sunday. Like, that's ridiculous. But even that short period of time, I remember being in Beijing for the 2008 games, and I remember someone saying to me, prior to the Beijing being awarded the games, people with disabilities were not seen. They pretty much stayed in the house. You didn't come out the house if you had a disability in China. And I even think about here in the States, like, why as a kid did I never see anyone with a disability? And it's like, not that you're forced to stay in the house, but is that the mentality of people with disabilities or people that are taking care of them? Like, okay, do you stay in the house? Do you not really go out anywhere? Like, do you not hang out anywhere? That kind of thing. And so I think Paralympics in itself has helped, it helped, I'll say, mainstream people with disabilities a lot better than what they were many years ago. And obviously social media has also helped with that. So it's I'll say it's nothing to, anymore to see someone out with a disability. I know I'm out all the time with my prosthetic, with walking around my leg, and just the stares and stuff that people would give you, like, oh my God, like, especially little kids. And little boys are always on it. Little boys are like staring at you like, what in the world is that she has? Because I want one.
Right.
They call it, little boys will call it a robot or a bionic leg or something or another. It's like, what's a bionic leg? So I'm always like, look right back at them. Their parents are like, shh, don't look at her, or, don't ask questions, or be quiet, trying to shush the kid. But I'm like, we'll never learn until you see someone. We'll never learn until you talk about it. We'll never learn, if we keep hiding behind closed doors. So the world needs more people like yourself. The world needs more people like myself that are not afraid to go out with our disability, and instead, are have a great desire to live our life in spite of.
Yeah, it is. It's so important to have the conversations about it. Because if everybody's being quiet about it, then nobody learns anything. So we definitely have to, like you said, need more people like ourselves willing to put their stories out there and to share the stories of other people. So the next question, as I mentioned before, I attended some of your foundation's fundraisers, and can you just talk a little bit about the April Holmes Foundation and what your mission is, and also mention where you can be found on the internet, social media, and things like that?
So I guess it was probably 2002, 2003. I realized that although I was able to, I'll say, overcome, some struggles as it relates to my disability, I also realized there were a whole lot of people that were not, and that are not. They don't get the opportunities, whether it's education, they don't get opportunities socially. They really just struggle for things, having disabilities. And so I really wanted to start a foundation to be able to help people with physical as well as learning disabilities, to help them with scholarships, to help them with medical equipment. Because when I got into my accident, I had excellent insurance. It paid for, everything that needed to be paid for. But also that there are people who, can't come home because they don't have a ramp at their house and they have a wheelchair now, or, they're stuck staying in a nursing facility, and, things like that, because their house is no longer fit for their now newcoming disability kind of thing. So I just think about, like, how difficult that was, and how great of a platform now that I had, just being in athletics. And so I'm like, okay, you have to use your platform for good. Who can benefit from some of the things that you're achieving in life? so, you know, having a wine and sneaker ball at the end of the day, it was pretty cool. Cause I kept saying to people, I'm like, okay, listen, I want you to get totally dressed up, and then I want you to put sneakers on your feet. And they're like, what? Especially the women. Now the men were excited because the men were like, great, I get to dress up and put a pair of sneakers on, great. But when we first started doing it, the conversation and the chatter back from women was like, how you want me to get all dressed up and put on a pair of sneakers? And I'm like, because I want you to get all dressed. And no one understood, except for a very, very small circle of people. No one understood why I wanted them to have a sneaker ball. But one of the things I did understand about people with disabilities is, more often than not, they do not own a pair of shoes, dress shoes. And if they do, they're not very comfortable wearing their dress shoes. And so in order to level the playing field for everyone, I wanted everyone to wear a pair of sneakers. And then I said, okay, and we're going to give out prizes for the best sneakers. And once I said we're going to give out prizes, like women just took it and ran with it. I mean,
That stepped it up a lot.
they stepped their game up seriously. Like they had bedazzled their shoes and, you know, stuff written on their shoes and stuff hanging from their shoes. I mean, sneakers. I mean, you name it, they did it. Which I thought was cool, because people really got into that mentality of, okay, all right, we all wearing sneakers. And one of the things they realized after the very first event, especially the women, were, you know, I just spent like 4 hours on my feet, and I feel so comfortable. Like my feet don't hurt. Like I'm walking around all these hours dancing and things like that, and my feet don't hurt. But it was about, you know, how can we make the people with disabilities more comfortable by bringing everyone to where they are. So it's fun. It was great. Unfortunately, so one, COVID took us in a different direction, but two, we were in the process of getting ready to pivot anyway, because there's some other interest and purposeful things that I have happening in my life. So we're going to pivot the foundation to really reflect those projects that I have going on now post athletics. So, you know, just rewriting some things and realigning some things, and are excited about the unveiling of our new mission in life. So I'm leave it at that, Arthur, right now. So
Great.
Otherwise I'm gonna get in trouble for saying too much. So
Right. And we don't want that. So just to wrap up the interview here, I also like to end my podcast episodes with this last question, which is, what do you want others to know about people who live with disabilities?
I think if you spent even a minute at Jake's place, you'll learn like so much about people with disabilities.
Yeah.
I've never seen brighter smiles. I've never seen greater determination. And then on top of that, even the support that's there for people. I remember coming out to an event you all had at the park. It's been a few years ago now. I know you all are having something. I just kind of stopped at the park, and I'm like, this is amazing. Like the level of support. You know, because it's one thing to feel like, you know, you're just going through something in life, but the more and more you have people that encourage you. And you and I are prime examples of that, because we both have mothers who are, I know we were just talking about your mom and how, you know, she's like your best friend, and mine the same way. It's like, you know, they have continued to push us out there. They're not ashamed of us at all. In fact, they probably push us sometimes harder than we push ourselves.
Yes.
So it's the, you know, I think when you can see, when you can be around, when you can experience what people with disabilities go through, and what their potential can be, and you're there to support and cheer just like you would anyone else. Like that to me is like just mind-boggling to me. Like I said, when I went to the event, it's like community day or something like that at Jake's place, I think. And when I got there, I'm like, I think in fact, I had difficulty even finding a parking space. Like that's how many people were. I was like, is something else happening at the park or something? I mean, all these people are here. But to see some of the awesome work that you were doing, to see some of the awesome work that your supporters and, you know, people that really, really believe in what you're doing. To me, I find a hard time believing that there is anything greater in life than to sit for a moment at that park, and watch people play, because they're not complaining, they're just playing,
Yeah,
to watch.
and
But
everybody plays together, which
yes,
is
yes,
something that something that we all need to see right now.
yes, yes,
Yeah, they're all playing whether they have a disability or not, and it's just
exactly.
something it is something beautiful to see, so,
Yes,
I
yes.
agree.
So I'm truly, I believe I am truly fortunate. One is to have, I'll say, to have met you, because it's interesting because you went to school with my sister and my cousin. So I
Yes.
mean, you're a different age group, but to know that they know you, and then for me to come full circle in life and also know you, I'm like, Arthur. They was like, yeah, how you know Arthur? And I'm like, wait, how do you know him? And I was like, I know him from the disability community, like that kind of thing. They're like, well, we actually have known him since he was a kid, and because
Yeah.
we went to school with him. And I'm like, really? And,
Uh-huh.
so those type of stories are always amazing. The fact that you have gotten it, you demonstrate what life should be like.
Oh, well, thank
I mean,
you, and, yeah, it's funny, your cousin Sonny and I, we were at the same babysitter before I even started school, so
Miss,
so
what's her name?
Miss Peters.
Yes, 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 yes,
Yeah,
yes,
Miss
yes.
Peters in Chislehurst, and,
Yep, and
yeah.
yep.
But it's so funny how, like you said, our stories, have connected we're connected before we even knew about it, so that's,
Absolutely,
really great,
absolutely.
and getting to know you, over the last few years has been, so great, and, I appreciate all of your support and, your support of, me personally and what I'm doing and just, the support of what we do with Jake's Place. Thank you again. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate you. And, I look forward to talking to you soon.
Yes, I look forward also. Thank you so much for having me. Appreciate you.
You're welcome. Have a good day.
Okay, you do the same. Bye bye now.
All right. Bye bye. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Our View Podcast. Be sure to subscribe to the Our View Podcast on Anchor, Apple Podcast, or Spotify. New episodes will be released on the 15th and 30th of every month. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube at Our View for Life. That's OurView, the number 4, LIFE. Do you want to help change the tone of conversation among your family and friends? Head over to our website for some Our View merchandise. Our website is www.our-view.com/merchandise. I thank you for listening. Have a great day and take care.